guys, welcome into the Shadow Box. I'm
Hey
Carlise,
guys.
your grief and trauma coach and your shadow work guide. Today with us, we have Rashida Dinehart. Rashida is actually doing her practicum right now in her master's of licensed master's of social work. She
Mhm.
is about to be a therapist. She is actually already seeing clients and doing her good work, and she's going to be specializing in grief. So, Rashida, tell us a little bit more about yourself and welcome into the Shadow Box.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Okay, so I guess a little about myself. Yeah, I am a currently in grad school getting my master's of social work. And the goal is to be a licensed therapist when all is said and done. They don't make it easy for you, I swear. Like there's like one licensure test and you have to like have this many hours, and then there's like a different licensure test all to like make $2 an hour. But still, that's not why I got into it, right? Um, but yeah, so I am going to be a grief therapist right now. I am working with, oh my goodness, I have like 15 or 16 clients that I see as part of my practicum, which is a lot for a student, I know. Um, but I'm really enjoying it, which
Yeah.
is kind of weird to be like, oh my God, I love doing all this griefy, heavy work, but it sits right with my soul.
Yeah.
And this feels like the thing I should be doing.
Yeah. I love it. And as you are working with your clients, you're also working with yourself too, right? Um, yeah. And so
Mhm.
I'm curious to see or to for you to tell me what is it that you're finding out about yourself as you're working with your client?
Ooh, I love that question. Um, I am a person who I call myself a child of therapy. Like I love therapy. I think therapy is for absolutely everyone, whether you've got big T trauma, little T trauma, or no trauma at all. It's just nice to have a person who's kind of just in your corner. So I've done therapy myself for going on like 9 years. And so it's funny you ask that because like you're like, I've done all of the healing, right? But you haven't. And so then like you there's no one's healed. We're all in the process of healing for forever, which is actually kind of
Yeah.
beautiful when you think about it. Um, but yes, I'm one thing I'm noticing about myself. Well, actually, one thing that surprises me the most about working with clients is my ability to not let it take me under. Like and I think that's because I have trauma and grief myself, right? So like I can like put theirs aside for a second
Yeah.
and not have it weigh me down. But like I've learned in this that I have a very like deep capacity to hold these stories for
Mm.
people, and to give them validation, to give them interventions that can help them heal. And I think that's kind of the coolest thing I'm learning through this is I guess I'm a lot stronger than I thought I was in holding
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. I love how you said that you have a deep capacity, right? And you
Hmm.
wouldn't have that deep capacity if it weren't for your own experience in grief. So
Hmm.
let's go ahead and kind of go into that and let's introduce us to your world of grief.
Yeah. So my first real encounter with grief, is my mom died when I was 15. So she died of a heart attack. It was completely and totally not, we didn't know it was coming, right? Like, so it was a complete and total shock. Um, at the time, I lived with my stepdad and her and my older brother. And so, yeah, that was kind of my entry into grief. And I put it in quotes because, like, my grandpa had died a little bit before that. And there had been like other familial losses kind of along the way, but that one was the loss that my whole world centered around. Like, my mom was
Yeah.
the center of not only my world, but other people's worlds too.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of the loss that put me on the trajectory that I'm on now. And then a year and a half after that, my best friend, um, so I was 16 at this time, my best friend who I'd grown up with, we went like first grade on, she died by suicide after that. So those are kind of like, when I talk about my grief story, those are the two that float to the surface. And then there'd been many, many other losses between then and now. But those are the losses that kind of shaped me.
Yeah. And especially
Hmm.
at such a young age.
Mhm.
Being in your teenage years and being without mom for one, and then having to kind of face mm, suicide, right?
Mhm.
And I want to know, I want to hear from your perspective because my major losses happened when I was a teenager as well.
Mhm.
Well, two of them. And growing up in that sort of grief and that sort of loss as a teenager is
Mhm.
something totally different. Um, and you're and you're grieving without knowing you're grieving or the extent of the grief, right? Tell me your
Mhm.
perspective of that.
Yeah, so this is well, it's all I've recently got diagnosed with ADHD,
Oh,
which you don't just get ADHD, you have it your whole life, right? So like I have been clearly masking it for years. And it's funny because now I'm looking back through that time,
mhm,
through the lens of, well, actually I had ADHD. So it was basically masked. So like I was able to mask my ADHD after my mom died because I was in like crisis mode. I was in
yeah,
survival. So like there wasn't time for me to be like floating through space and like making mistakes. Um, and so yeah, now that I've kind of like done a lot of healing from that stuff, my ADHD is like reared its ugly head and it's like, no, we've been here all
yeah,
along. So all of that to say is that after my mom passed away, like I'm naturally a busybody. Hello, ADHD. 2 years ago, I would have just been like, I don't know, I'm a busybody. And now I'm like, no, you have ADHD.
mm,
And so I'm naturally a person who's has her hands in a lot of buckets and who is doing a lot of things at once, right? And so and that's sort of my maladaptive coping strategy is to get busy and not feel the feels. And then also it was 2005, so like nobody was saying, "Hey, Rashida, feel your feels."
yeah,
Um, and so I just jumped into doing the things I needed to do. Like so, then I needed to graduate high school, so I did the things to graduate high school, and that was my focus. Like I was like a machine, taking all the AP courses, getting involved in all the things. I had a part-time job too, so it was just busy. And
mhm,
then by the time I got to college, I kind of just did the same thing, right? I was busy, and I knew that I couldn't be one of those college people who gets to slack off and like change their majors a bunch of times and like do all these things because I was self-funded and I didn't have
mhm,
money or time to like mess with that. And so yeah, was very busy through college, also very involved, also like taking all these courses, doing the thing. And so it wasn't until I was well, we getting ready to leave college. So like it was my senior year. I had a job lined up for when I moved back to St. Louis. And that was when I was like, whoa, what is this feeling? I'm angry and sad and
yeah,
can't get out of bed, right? So like essentially 7 years of grief that I had left, that I'd put somewhere else,
mhm,
not even knowing that I put somewhere else, right? Like,
right,
so I can't tell you that, like, as a 15, 16-year-old, I was actively like, not today, grief. Like,
right,
if you asked me then, I would have said, oh, I'm surviving. Like, I'm fine.
yeah,
I'm being strong like my mom would want me to be. Um, but looking back, I was obviously not fine.
yeah, yeah, and that is a big part of you, um, learning how to survive kind of on your own in the mix, doing everything that you needed to do because you had to, like you were literally in survival mode. So kind of
Mhm.
track us back to a little bit of after your mother passed away and what your home life was and what really kind of got you into the trajectory of like, this is up to me. My life is literally in my hands.
Yeah, so my mom was absolutely the glue that, like I said, held a lot of family members together. So I do think that in her passing, a lot of us were grieving in our own way, if that makes
Mhm.
sense. So like it's hard to see somebody else's grief through your own. And so I really after my mom passed away, it was essentially just my brother and I in this house trying to make it all work. Just the two of us until I eventually moved in with my aunt
Yeah.
before I left for college.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a rough and interesting end to high school. But I will say I had an incredible like group of friends. So I'm still very, very close with my high school friends. some of them had personal relationships with my mom themselves.
Yeah.
And so like I had, I guess, like refuge in the homes of my best friends and like their moms who also looked out for me. Um, but I was also just like fiercely independent. So in some way, I was also like, no, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. Which again, I wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, and so once your mother passed away, did you guys immediately go to your aunt's house? Did you guys go together or separately, or how did that work?
No, at the time my mom passed away, my brother was 19.
Okay.
And so he was working two jobs. And so that's really how we were able to make it work because he was working two jobs, and doing all the things and like bought me my first car and like really acting as if he was 30, but he was 19, right? He was even old enough to drink. But yeah, so it wasn't until by the time when I moved in with my aunt when I left for college, so I was 18, so
Okay.
3 years later. And then my brother at that point was like 20, like whatever, 22. So he moved then into an apartment of his own.
Okay. So after mom passed away, it's just you and brother living together. Brother's taking care of little sister, and you
Mm-hmm.
guys are living, just
Yep.
leaving it, right? What a
Mm-hmm.
story. I mean, because for you guys to stick together and for him to assume that position, it's like, we're all we got, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that was the pillar of your foundation at that time,
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah.
And
Oh
I'm
yeah.
so glad that he recognized that and was able to stand in that with you and not
Mm-hmm.
just like, oh, a girl out here by herself without her mom, without it's just like that is hats off to your brother. Really, really,
Yeah,
really,
yeah. Hats
really.
off to my and I just also to say it's I don't my aunts and my grandmas were also big helps at the time too. Like it did take convincing for me to move in with my aunt
Mm,
because and I couldn't even tell you why. Like I don't know why I was so like possibly because it was that would mean leaving the house that I was in with my mom for so long. I'm not totally sure. So to some extent, I do feel like my brother and I just were like, no, everybody, we're fine. Don't look over here when we weren't.
yeah.
And again, everybody else was working through their grief too of my mom. And so, like, if you're also grieving and someone else is like, no, I'm fine, you're probably going to just accept it at face value because you're also in pain. So, like, you don't
Mhm.
have the space to give more.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, hats off to my brother, because he was really the thing that held it together for me.
Yeah. So tell us about your mom. What is your mom's name? Tell us about her. Give us the feels on her.
Yeah, so my mom's real name was Marceline, but she hated it. And so she went by Mona for short, so everybody knew her as Mona. She was it's so funny. The older I get, the more I think that I'm like her. Although she was a deep introvert and I am an extreme extrovert, which is so funny because that actually used to annoy her about me. It's like she'd always be like, "You don't tell everybody your business all the time," and I'm like, "I'm just talking." Which now it's funny because I'm like ADHD. Like I'm just talking. But yeah, she was this just like strong woman who would and to a detriment too. Like I'm also like deconstructing these days what it means to be a strong Black woman anymore because that was the narrative we were given for so long. But
Yeah.
like, what if strong means being vulnerable? What if strong means like actually feeling your feelings? Like, what if strong means actually communicating your needs to somebody? And so my mom was probably strong to a detriment. As again, Black women were in the 90s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s. Um, she was hilarious. So loved a prank, a practical joke, loved like shooting the shit with people, loved making fun of people. Like that was the way she showed you she loved you, basically. She was incredibly caring. And just like loved her people. So like to be in my mom's orbit was to know you were loved and cared for because that's what she did.
Yeah.
Um, I'm one of six grandchildren. And to this day, my brother and I, and then two more cousins and two more cousins, like stats like that. And so to this day, the two oldest cousins behind me will still be like, I just miss your mom
Yeah.
because she had her own relationship with each of them. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, she was just an incredibly caring person. She loved the color blue. Loved shopping, also probably to a detriment.
Mhm.
Didn't love dogs, which makes me laugh because I fucking love dogs now. Um, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
she was what she's I and I know that we put people on a pedestal after they die, right? And I think in becoming a mom myself, I'm also able to see some of her shortfalls too,
Yeah.
right? So like things I do as a mom she wouldn't have done, or things she did as a mom, I'm like, I'm gonna rewrite that a little bit. But all of
Yeah.
that to say I had still a wonderful childhood, and if I could have even like 2/3 the relationship I had with my mom with my two kids, then I'm gonna chalk that up as a win.
Yeah. Let's talk about how is it being a mom without your mom, right?
It's a
That's
time.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, so being a mom without a mom is definitely it is so I made up this term called re-grief, and it's like the idea, and it's like it's primarily for those who've lost parents, but like when you lose a parent so young, no one tells you that you're going to like continue to grieve them in different ways as time
Mhm.
goes by. So
Yeah.
like yes, I miss my mom, but then no one told me that I was also going to like miss what it would mean having a grandma nearby, like here, or
Yeah.
like I would miss like pieces of my mom that like just like things my mom would like, the relationship my mom would have with my kids, that kind of
Mhm.
thing. Nobody
Yeah.
ever told you that, right? So like you
Right.
lose a parent young, and then you like kind of move on with your life, and you're like, whoa, there's some
Yeah.
pain still here. And so yeah, I that's actually when I started therapy again, or for like the trajectory, the 10-year trajectory I'm on now,
Yeah.
is because I had met my husband. He wanted kids. At that point, I was like, I don't think I want kids.
Yeah.
Um, and he was like, no, but I do want kids. And I was like, okay, so let me see what I think. And had to work through a lot of my just straight up fear of what it
Yeah.
meant to be a mom who didn't have her mom to like guide her through any of the things. And I think what's interesting is I wouldn't say I'm like healed from my mom's death, right? But like the initial impact of it has come and gone.
Mhm.
What I feel now are like these residual things, like
Yeah.
these I my son is he loves banana Laffy Taffy. I think banana Laffy Taffy are absolutely fucking or sorry, absolutely effing disgusting. I think they're absolutely effing disgusting. But you know who loves banana Laffy Taffy? My mom. And so like those little moments when there's like something so clearly her that is like come through and is in my kid, that those hurt. Those hurt.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And even within the hurt, it's also like that comfort, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
And a
oh,
little bit of joy and pride.
say that again.
And a little bit of joy and pride too, right?
Yeah.
Like she's still here
Yeah.
with me.
And she's through my children, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so those also those portions where you're like they're missing out on her. If we think about it spiritual in a spiritual way, right? She's
Mm-hmm.
like, no, I'm all up in them. You know, that's why
Mm-hmm.
he likes these banana laffy taffies and all the other little
Mm-hmm.
quirky things that they may do and personality, personality things. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, that is mom here. Like in
Mm-hmm.
that essence of like, I've never left you, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I had now you have my grandchildren, your children, and now there's a way that I can live through them and live through this life with you because I know I left you at such a young age, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that for one, I love the fact that that you put yourself out there. You put yourself I seen you the other day in a taco outfit. Was it a taco? Was
Yeah.
it a
Let's
taco?
taco
I
for
was like,
Halloween.
okay. And you were in your mode. And
Mm-hmm.
so, but I like how you contributed that to your grief and the freedom of it, right? Because it's like
Mm-hmm.
at sometimes you do feel like you're just out there,
Mm-hmm.
but you give yourself permission to be out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you do it in a way that's not toxic, right? You were in a whole
Mm-hmm.
dance class with your taco outfit on, letting it go,
I
right?
was.
And so, but giving yourself that freedom of, I miss her, but I know she's still here. But how do I come into myself? right?
Mhm.
And so I know
Mhm.
that when we had talked previously, I was asking you, growing up as a young woman without the mother in your life to kind of
Mhm.
show you the ropes. Like you had your aunt, and I'm pretty sure she did, her portion in there.
Mhm.
But not but, would you say that growing into yourself, learning who you were as a young woman, was that very difficult for you, or did your aunt make it easy for you?
That's a good question. And I have to be honest and say that I don't know that I came into myself
Mm,
until recently, I will
okay.
say. Yeah, so, like, I don't know that, like I mean, I've always been confident and, like, assured of my path ahead, like, but I don't know that, like, this phase, which is funny because it, like, goes with the taco costume, but, like, this phase of my life feels so where I was supposed to be, right? Like, so I feel so very much in my purpose, like, I'm walking in my purpose and living in my purpose. I have, like, I'm a mom of these littles, like, I
Yeah.
just think it it could be because, like, again, I was just surviving for that second or for that portion of, like, after I lost my mom, high school, college, just surviving. Then,
Yeah.
like, your 20s is a weird time anyways, right? Like, you're
Yeah.
just out in the streets, being in the streets. Do like you're still like you don't know who you really are in your 20s. You're
Right.
just doing the things, right? And then I got married pretty young, so I met
Yeah.
my husband at 23. We got married at 25. Well,
Okay.
he's 4 years older than me, so he was 29 when we got married, right? And then we had our first kid when I was 27. And my second when I was 30. So like
Okay.
at the time I was 30, I was like, whoa, whoa.
What's going on?
Yeah, like I was like, whoa, I am the life I have right now is so completely, wholly, and wonderfully different than than the life I had when my mom was alive, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that there's another train going by. Hang on.
It's okay. I can barely hear that one.
I live right by the train track. Like I forget that it's happening. We'll have visitors and they're like, "What is that noise?" I'm like, "Oh, it's the train." Anywho, um, so yeah, I think that this phase of my life where I've kind of come into my motherhood and come into a place of being comfortable being a mom without a mom, come into a place where I also in motherhood don't feel guilty for taking time to myself to like be myself and do my own things, a thing my mom never really did. That's
Mhm.
different too, right? That I'm like actively choosing to be like, no,
Yeah.
no, child, like I'm choosing this for me.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think right now is probably the meest I have ever felt, which is actually really cool to say.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
And when we talk about that shadow aspect, I always tell my clients or the people that are interview about, your shadow self is one that has been suppressed or one that has kind of shaped itself once when you were a child, as you were being conditioned, all of this
Hmm.
stuff, right? So one of the things that I remember you mentioning early on was the aspect of being a strong Black woman, right? And what
Hmm.
it or just being a strong woman, period, what it looks like and what you were shown it was like when you were a child by your mother. And so
Hmm.
that's one of those shadow aspects of how are you projecting yourself out now as this strong woman? Did you come into the are you coming into the understanding of like I could be strong here, or I can be this type of strong over here, but I can't be that type of strong over here. Like how are you learning how to balance that out so that it doesn't over shadow where you're going?
Sure. No, I like that question. And I it was also funny. So my mom, again, very strong Black woman, very strong in her Blackness, in her womanhood, and all of those things. But she did not paint me into a box for self. Like, so she did not say, like, or show, like, this is how you be Black woman, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so, like, I was thinking about this the other day. When I was learning to drive, Ashley Simpson was really big, and I would rock to her Ashley Simpson CD while like driving with my mom. And I'm like scared proud Black woman in the car with her Black daughter who is
Yeah.
actively listening to like the whitest music you could like listen to. And like no part of my mom was ever like, you can't listen to that because you are Black or like
Yeah.
any of those things. So she did like, there were so many parts of myself that she allowed me to be what they were.
Yeah.
And so I think that has also translated into like who I am today, if that makes sense. So like
Yeah.
she never really tried to make me be her or be interested in the things she was interested in. And because of that, I have the like most random taste in music a person could ever have. I'm really good at music trivia because of this. But yeah, I feel like so because she herself is a strong Black woman, but she did not force me into a particular box of being a strong Black woman that I never felt not Black woman, if that makes sense. I
Yeah.
don't know. I've always
Well,
been,
and that is, I love that she gave you that space and that freedom, right?
mm-hmm,
And then, however, when you are in observation, and you're seeing all that she's doing, all how she carries herself,
mm-hmm,
the weight that she has when it comes to other people, you learn about that sort of strength. And
yeah,
when you have someone that you're observing that's like that, it kind of innately comes into you. A
mm-hmm,
strong Black woman is not just necessarily because of our color or because of what we're able to do or say per
mm-hmm,
se. It's more so of how do I show up in this world? Right?
mm-hmm,
How do I show up for my husband? How do I show up for my kids? How do I show up for myself? That's within
mm-hmm,
feminine strength as a strong woman, but it's not overpowering because I had to learn how to survive. And I also see my mom be strong because then you
mm-hmm.
start that comparison, right? And so
Yeah.
talk to me from that space. Are you experiencing that, or is that something that you're growing out of?
I don't know that I am because I have always been pretty authentically and transparently myself. And
Okay.
so, like, I think to ask anybody who's known me growing up, to ask anybody who knows me now means like I'm someone told me recently, they were like, it's so funny, you're the exact same person on social media as you are in real life. And I was like, yeah, yeah. And so like I think that I'm yeah, very authentically me in all of the rooms that I go into. I think what differs what I view as being strong than differently than what my mom probably viewed as being strong would be like I am a boundary setting queen. So like
Okay.
I'm very protective of my mental health. Like I'm very protective of my mental health as it pertains to my little family unit too, because I
Yeah.
know that I need to be my best me in order to like continue to show up for my husband and my kids. And
Yeah.
so I do think that's an area I've gotten right. Things that my mom maybe didn't get right, right? So like I've
Okay.
always been, even as I entered motherhood, I was always and I think, gosh, I married a man who is
Mm,
wonderfully like, do you go do you.
yeah.
Um, and so like I went on my first girls trip when my son was 8 months old. Like I was like, I really gotta go.
Okay.
Right. And so like I just don't that's not something my mom would have done.
Yeah.
She wouldn't have set boundaries. She didn't set boundaries. Like I said, she was a giver of herself to a detriment. And I hate to say it, but I do feel like watching my mom growing up, had she not died,
Mhm.
maybe I would be more like that, if that makes sense. So, like, had
Yeah.
she not died, then I wouldn't have had the negative outcome of what that does.
Yeah.
But does that make sense?
It does.
But because she died, I got to be like, whoa,
Yeah.
that didn't work. Whatever she was doing didn't work.
Yeah.
And so I, in turn, kind of have done, yeah, I'm just a lot better at setting boundaries, a lot better at choosing myself,
Mhm.
um, a lot better at, yeah, recognizing my needs, I think,
Okay.
and communicating them.
Okay. I love it. I love it. I love
Yeah.
it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, let's see. What would you tell a young grieving daughter or a young grieving teenager from losing your parents and even losing a best friend from
Mm-hmm.
suicide? What would you tell them?
Mm-hmm. I don't know that I can answer that. Like, I'm about to give you a therapist response. Um, I would have to know where that person is. Like, I would have to know like where they are and their feelings, what's their grief narrative. Like, so grief is so universal, but so unique to everyone else that I don't know that my story is so different from someone else's, right?
Mhm.
And so I would, one thing I pride myself about being a grief therapist is like my ability to get in the hole with the person.
Yeah.
And so sometimes for kids and teens, like there's no fixing, right? And so there's nothing I could say to them. Like they don't want to hear. I wouldn't have wanted to hear. Like they don't want to hear. Well, hey, guess what? 20 years later, I'm happy now. So like you're gonna be happy too. Like,
Mhm.
like. And so I would just get in the hole with them. Like I would just get in the hole with them and see them, validate them, and honestly be like, you know what, this does suck.
Yeah.
There's no way around it. That sucks.
Yeah. Did you have someone to get in the hole with you?
No.
Okay. So that's what you would, that's something that you would tell them, you need that support. You need someone to
Mm-hmm.
get into the hole with you. And because what it would have done for you if someone just would have sat there with you and you had your brother, but
Mm-hmm.
you guys were grieving, bouncing off of each other, grieving, right?
Yeah,
Um,
and my brother is very stoic too. So like I rarely saw my brother cry. And I do think the narrative around grief is different now than it was in 2005, especially within like the Black community.
yeah,
And so I do feel like I don't want to throw any shade to be like, no one got in the hole with me, but I'm also like, nobody knew to get in the hole with me, I
yeah,
think. Because that wasn't the narrative. Like the narrative was like I went back to school the next week. Like like we live in this culture, which I will like be on a stump talking about this for the rest of my life, but like we live in a culture where you are told to hide your grief, right? And you're told to
mm,
like get over it right away.
yeah,
But like that doesn't work. Like
it-
you can't if you lost your husband, what do you mean you have to go back to work 3 days later when your
right,
entire world no longer exists?
yeah,
And so like the world has just changed. We've come a long way from 2025. Like we are actively talking about grief, but there's still not enough space for people to actually grieve.
right. And depending on the generation too, right? So
Mm-hmm.
especially 2005 and not knowing how old your aunts were and however that goes, that was the mindset that they had. Like they didn't know how to kind of get in there with you and how are you
Mm-hmm.
feeling and what do you need to do or do you need anything or what have you. And so that's what you're taught, in that conditioning, like I'm supposed to get up and go and I'm just supposed to do this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we can't blame people for that because it's like they only know what they know, which is
Right.
when you don't get what you need, you go into these sorts of professions so that you can be there for people to give them what you wish you would have had, right? And just to
Mm-hmm.
ear, an ear to hear. Um,
Mm-hmm.
let's see. So as we're tying this up, I want you to tell me who are you to this day? So I know you have a lot of growing to do, but tell me who are you today?
Hmm. I oh, man, that is a hard question. I asked somebody at Barefoot Institute the other day, and they also gave a blank stare, like I just gave to you. Um, I am a deeply empathetic person with boundaries who, gosh, I love this. Now I'm like, who am I? When I think about that question, who are you? I immediately go to like the intersectionalities of like all of my identities, right? So like I immediately go to I'm Black, I'm a woman, I'm a mom, I'm now a therapist, I'm living in St. Louis, I'm all of these things. And so
Yep.
like the response is all of that. And so the who am I is like the melting pot of all of that. But it's also the what I've been through, like the grief that I hold, the trauma that I hold, um, the stories I've held or I've had along the way. So it's like I'm a melting pot of a weird stew of like grief and joy.
Yeah. Okay. There's no wrong
Yeah.
answer. There's absolutely no wrong
Yeah.
answer, right? And I'm curious, I do want to interview you again, like, after some time, because I want to ask you
Hmm.
that question again and see what you come up with. But there's no wrong answer for where you are right now today, right? Because it
Right.
is what it is. And as you are unfolding within yourself, you're unfolding to the world. And so you're
Hmm.
learning who you are. So as we wrap up, tell us anything that we should look forward to coming from you. What's going on your end of the world? What's Rashida's game plan now?
Yeah. So right now I am working on my platform called Griefology, which is a grief education platform. So like on there, you'll find resources to kind of help you through your grief. There's blog posts, there's on my Instagram, there's different shows of validation. I firmly believe like grief doesn't have to be the thing where we're all crying all the time.
Hmm.
So I do infuse a little dark humor into most of the things that I do.
Yeah.
I run a grief group here in St. Louis as well, that I'm doing through the place that I'm currently in my practicum. But yeah, that you can find me at griefology.co. And honestly, what's next for me is more of this, more getting the word out about grief and all of its facets. Like, yes, I'm a person who lost their mom, but like, I think that grief is any sort of loss. So, like, if you tell me that you broke your leg and now you're really depressed, I'm likely going to be like, yeah, well, yeah, you're grieving walking. Like you're grieving your ability to walk. And so
Yeah.
like I personally approach most things with a grief first, like this person is grieving. And I
Yeah.
do think if the world understood that more, if everybody understood that grief wasn't just death and you are allowed, your grief is allowed to take up space in a different context, I
Yeah.
think the world would be better and we'd probably be a lot angry or a lot less angry at each other.
Yeah.
Um, because then we could give each other more space for the bigger grief too.
Yeah, that's true. I love it. I love it.
Hmm.
Everything that Rashida is offering and how to get in touch with her, how to link up with her Griefology and her Instagram will be in her bio under this podcast. Rashida, I want to thank you for spending time with us in the shadow box and just trusting us in this space with your story. Thank you for sharing your mom with us.
Thank
She
you
sounds
for
like
letting me
a
share her with you.
course. She sounds like a truly beautiful person, and she's
Hmm.
definitely made a beautiful daughter who's doing
Thank you.
wonders in the world. Yes.
Thank you.
Um, let's see. Everyone else, thank you for coming into the shadow box, and we will see you next time. Namaste.